like to do or not do?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
So why are we here?
Good question.
I mean, on this earth,
No,
our destiny.
He knows I'm talking about an intro to the video, so we're here because you've got these amazing pictures, right?
Well, I think so.
I've heard about this for so long. You're looking on the spot. You don't have to fill on the spot. We don't have to do anything. You can just photograph the show and.
That's right.
That's fine. Are you on and going? Is that what you're doing?
I am leaving it on,
Okay.
but you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. I'm sorry, I can't keep my eyes on it.
Bill.
I love these guys.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
That's what they'll use.
I got a chance to go into the one at Ripreal, and
What's the Ripreal?
the granary out there at Ripreal. We've been with
I have pictures of it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those group of buildings.
Well, and the very, very tall.
Yeah.
Is it here?
I don't know if you can stay wherever you want to.
There's a couple of pictures.
Mark's let us shoot out there. Oh yeah, that's it. They let us shoot out there for part of introductions for an American Agriculture Show on the RFP.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great picture. I just love the way they got the minister working wires in.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that was maybe most of these are normal focal length for right now. But this one is one of the few that I did use a telephone. This one is a long. This was actually normal lens again. That is just amazing in terms of showing it in the landscape. Okay. But the show is about.
Okay, let me. Sorry. Oh, you got it going. Okay. Yes. What's the show about?
Well, what interests me are primary forms in architecture, and this is something that interested Corbusier back in the 20s in his manifesto towards a new architecture, and he has a whole chapter on American grain elevators, and he admired them for their pragmatism and for their lack of ornament and for their primary forms. And I was interested in the primary forms of these things before I had read Corbusier. And so basically that's what it's about. It's just the basic elemental forms of architecture expressed in grain elevators. That's it.
That's amazing.
And again, the quote that I have over there, Corbusier's quote says it all. So, but basically that one little segment right there is just all, it's all it is. Wow. Nothing else to say. And they have a lot of sentimental value, but I was less interested in the sentiment than I was in the architecture. And I realized that over time they have to come down.
Yeah.
A lot of them are falling apart, a lot of them are fire hazards. There was one in Kent they took down because it was going like this. And the people who were living here were unhappy about it, and so they had to knock it down. But so they're going. But so
I thought it was interesting how you talked about the construction, that they're generally made in sections and then stacked.
Oh yeah, well that has something to do with the primary forms, although the concrete ones obviously are not stacked. But the traditional crib elevator was stacked lumber, thousands and thousands of pieces, all mortised or whatever it is at the corners, and those are still my favorites. But I'll tell you, they're hard to find. I went all the way up to northern Washington, and on the Waterville Plateau, there were only about 3 that I wanted to photograph, and but they're here. It was worth the trip. So that's about it. Cut.
I am amazed though in the wheat areas that they have stood without burning down.
They have to do what?
They've stood without burning down because the chaff is really pretty combustive. I mean,
No,
the diesel engine was originally made to run off of wheat chaff in Germany. So.
Well, they would keep the engine separate from the building, actually, and the one that I got a tour of in the Grand Line Valley, he said that he has a ton of public liability insurance, but he has no insurance for the building. He says that they will not insure it. And he says if it goes, it takes half the town with it. So, in fact, there are a few pictures online of these buildings that have caught on fire. But on the other hand, they caught on fire a lot in the plains in Canada. But I also read someplace that they could put up on that size. 18 men could put it up in 2 weeks functionally. I mean, and they weren't going to waste any time getting the capacity back again. And,
That's amazing. Well, they have such a short season that they have to process, so, yeah.
I guess I've always thought it'd be fun to go to the Great Plains or Alberta, Saskatchewan, sort of, you know, the grain elevator heaven. But apparently only about a tenth of the ones that were there in the 30s are still there.
Wow.
There were close to 4,000 in the Canadian provinces, and now they're like 300 or something. So they're cutting them down.
May I trade places with Eric for a minute? Because he always likes to ask questions too.
Oh,
No, you can stay there. He'll come over to it.
I hope you're editing this.
I want to give you a chance to.
Are you editing this?
Yeah, we're running this.
No, editing.
Oh yeah, we're editing. Yeah.
No, it's going to be like a 4-hour thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's what is it called? The cinema verite, you know.
So, I'm just curious, when you're looking at these compositions, are you thinking formally first or just documentation first?
Oh, I'm looking at the shapes, absolutely the shapes, and when I'm looking at these,
Sorry, I gotta go outside.
like some of these that came back the next day for morning light, okay, and I'm going around the building and I'm just looking, like you go around a sculpture, just looking for the perfect angle that'll show as much of one side as little of another side, so it's just right. And then some buildings are basically architectural elevations, like that one. On the other hand, I went left and right on that one, and that was the picture I wanted for sure. But no, like Randy said in his article over there, that like Corbusier, I'm really interested in the way these things reveal themselves in light, and there's no doubt about it. The one in Michelob over there is really funny. It almost looks like this one here. I mean, in terms of primary forms, it almost looks like it was made out of children's blocks, you know, sit out there in the plain. And this one's unusual because I drove all the way up there. It's a 7-hour drive because I found this online, a bad picture of it, but it's the first one I found that had a hexagonal bin shaped like this. All the other ones are square. And if they're built out of wood. So let's say I drove all the way up there and photographed. I don't have all the pictures I thought I had here. Anyway, there was one other building that had that wonderful shape to it. But the other thing I mentioned before is that of all the ones I've seen, all the ones that I've researched online, I've never found a single ornament of any kind. I mean, no little thing up in the eave or of a gable, a trim. They'll have big block letters on the side, maybe Morrow Grain Growers or something. And maybe there's a ornament someplace. But when Corbusier was writing in the 20s, he was real. He talked about these a lot, and he talked about the fact that they were free of ornament. Okay, and the famous architect at the time was a guy named Adolphe Loos, who said that ornament is crime. You know, and so again, just the honest pragmatism of these things. Also, the small ones, and these are mostly small ones, were usually built with no permits. So far as I can tell, 2 or 3 farmers that get together and say we need 30,000 bushel capacity, so let's sketch one out on the back of an envelope and build it. And they would just build it themselves. And So that's about all I know about it. I know more about the insides than most people do, but not a lot.
The size of the timber is what amazes me. I mean,
The size of what?
the timber and some of those things, you can't get that dimension of beams anymore for
On the inside.
one piece. Yeah,
But these things, the crib construction is mostly 2x6s.
oh wow.
Stacked one on top of the other, and they try to recycle. There's an effort to kind of recycle because it's really good lumber, but they are so tightly nailed. I mean, just spikes. My understanding is they have a hard time getting the wood out. And yet the one in Halsey that's on the card somehow didn't get into the show. That they estimate that has 2 million board feet of lumber in it.
Wow.
Which,
That's a lot of houses.
That's crazy.
well, it was what was available then, you know. And
Right.
also, I don't know much about it, again, except that apparently there's some advantages to the wood in terms of the way the grain stores, the way it dries, moisture and so forth. But I don't think there's certainly no more wooden woods built. They're all corrugated steel or concrete.
Right.
And the big ones are interesting too. I mean, the ones you see at ports that have millions of bushels, those huge factory-like things, you know. But I didn't feel they were really part of this show. I mean, I wanted this one to show the contrast between an old one and a new one. But other than that, I haven't been interested in photographing the ones like in the port of, like in Portland, for example.
So, how long have you been doing this? When did it become a passion for you to do
But
this?
grain elevators?
Yeah.
Just 3 or 4 years ago.
Really?
Because I'd moved up from California in 2007 and come down Highway 99 and I turned into Halsey and I came around the corner and there was the building that was on my card, which is not in the show accidentally. And there it was, you know. It's this beautiful building. And that one on the card is the first one that I photographed. And I have spent a lot of hours on the internet looking at Flickr pictures. And the other thing that's fun is I've gotten to so that I can recognize them from satellite photos. So if I'm trying to find one, you know, I go researching up some country road out of Condon or someplace, and that looks like one, you know.
Is that your Google Earth cheat? Is that how you do it? Or?
No, I haven't figured out how to use Google Earth, but I'm just talking about the plain satellite pictures. And if I get a rough idea where it is, I can usually find it on the satellite photos. Anyway, I'm going to stop pretty soon doing these. I've got a few more to do that I want to do when the sun shines again, and then that'll be about it. You know, I'd love to do a book, but as a thought,
Yeah.
maybe do a book with about 30 illustrations in it.
Oh, yeah.
So far, I'd say I have about, in terms of individual, like what I have here, I've got about 22 or 3 or 4, something like that. And but they're very finished. You know, I don't want snapshots.
Your composition is just wonderful. It really is. I'm looking at the clouds, and I mean, it's just amazing.
Oh, there's
that landscape there. That was such a good.
Oh, there's an amazing line in a poem by Siegfried Sassoon about Stonehenge, and he describes this mute monument to antiquity and myth and so forth. But the line that sticks in my head is, here's this thing just sitting there for thousands of years with the skies of history hurrying overhead. And you look at somebody's picture, and this thing is probably used for stories. It's basically, it's a band just sitting out there all by itself. That picture over there in the middle is that same building in context.
Oh,
The long one.
It looks lonely out there.
Well, why they stand out. I knew where this was from the satellite pictures, and I drove about. It's kind of undulating, and I went down a hill, came up, and here's this, you know, horizon. Well, it's no missing it. I knew it was what I was looking for that I'd seen online.
Have you played with scale of your photos at all?
Just what?
With scale? blowing them up bigger, trying to get
Do you know?
some kind of an imposing figure in some of these, because they are monolithic.
Well, yes and no. With digital photography, there's a kind of a fad for size. If your pictures are 30 by 40, who interested, you know? Two things about this show. Glad you asked. Is that I ordinarily don't like to frame under glass because I don't like the color, the green,
Right.
gray-green color. But I've scaled these prints to work under glass. If you take the glass off, they'll look bright and contrasting. In other words, I've adjusted them to work with the glass. But they also remind me of 19th century photography when the picture couldn't be any bigger than the film because they had no enlargers, okay? And they also remind me a little bit of daguerreotypes in their little cases with the glass covers on them, you know? And also to have something that only one person can look at a time, like you're reading a page, okay? But no, I would love to do some larger ones, but they wouldn't go any bigger than about, so that's big enough. And because there is detail in these that you can't see in this size print because they're very detailed.
Oh, sure.
They're very sharp. That's about it. So you can slice that up.